In today's video, we'll take a look at a full stealth assassin build for Outer Worlds 2. This is more than capable of pretty much one-shotting anything. Even in the mid to end game, bosses with 5 to 6,000 plus HP get absolutely obliterated. You also get a lot of invisibility and camouflage via early on flaws and some of the mods. Plus, one of the strongest and most fun weapons to play in the game is something you can get within the first 5 to 10 hours depending how you play. So I'm going to show you the whole setup from start to finish, and let's jump right in. Starting with the character creation, in terms of the backgrounds, it really doesn't matter which one you pick here, since mostly it's going to affect dialogues, maybe with a couple of exceptions. I do know that there is a place later on in the game where ex-convict can actually give you access to a specific room, but it's not going to like change much for you. So I would say that the best options here, if you want to go full on RP, are ex-convict, gambler, and renegade. And personally, I went with renegade just because with this character I wanted to be as apprehensive as possible to everybody around me. But pick your poison and then move on to the traits. In terms of traits, on my first playthrough, I started with Brilliant and with Lucky, but you can drop one of them and get Nimble instead if you want more crouch speed. In the case of the Brilliant, I would say this is the best for beginners. It lets you specialize into a third skill right away and start with 2 extra points for it. So this is going to let you become a bit stronger from earlier on. And there are quite a few dialogues during which Brilliant comes in handy and helps out a little bit, but nothing that will completely alter your experience. I would say that Lucky is a much stronger one at altering outcomes. There are quite a few occasions when you can just guess passwords or input things at random and things just go your way. But personally, I went with it initially for the extra critical chance, and that was it. You can, of course, drop one of these and get Nimble instead if you want more crouch speed and combat sprint speed. However, there's going to be a much better perk that we're going to eventually get, which gives even more towards that. Finally, for the skills, the 3 most important will be Sneak, Observation, and Guns. In this order, I typically like mostly focusing on sneaking because that's what's going to increase my stealth damage and reduce enemies' awareness of me, and then alternate between Observation and Guns depending which perk I want next. By the time you get like level 5 in either of these, you should already have access to some really strong passive perks as a result of this combination. In total, you're going to end up with 64 total points by the time you reach level 30. So 6 were provided by default by having Brilliant perk, and another 58 by leveling up to level 30. Meaning that you can potentially have some extra skill points and even invest a little bit into lockpicking and then get that 1 point into pickpocketing if you want to go full on assassin, stealth rogue and whatnot, and be able to also steal from people, which makes things a little bit easier. Which brings us to the perks, and the main thing we're doing here is extending the sneak attack damage as much as possible, and not just to get it during stealth, but even extend it when we break stealth or enemies start discovering us. That is why, for example, we're using Ghost, so when we are crouched and NPCs start investigating, you literally gain invisibility, camouflage, so you continue to gain those bonuses and get extra damage. And the cooldown is also very low, only 3 minutes, which you can make even better as you invest more points into sneaking. Besides that, we're also going with Assassin, which is another prerequisite for an even better ability. So like I said, when we defeat enemies in stealth, we literally gain a 100% movement speed, which is way quicker than Nimble. And from this point on, we can start getting extra damage. We can then invest points into Stalker, so we do need to have Assassin before this, but this is going to let us basically still continue to gain sneak attack damage even by the time enemies already turn hostile. So let's say enemies discover you, they see you, or you distracted them, or you left the corpse behind, you're going to still continue to at least get a plus 200% attack damage against them during the whole duration. So you are useful even outside of stealth. For pure damage, Guns already gives us some alternatives depending which weapons you pick, but I still recommend getting both of them. So since we're going to get our strongest weapon to be a silenced shotgun, Point Blank Artist will be our best option. So all the enemies within 10-meter range with these 3 categories, shotguns, SMGs, and pistols, will gain a plus 100% sneak attack damage and also another 30% to nearby enemies, even if you don't use them. So this is actually going to be really strong, but you also want to get Sharpshooter anyway because there's a very strong sniper rifle anyway that you can create. So if you put a silencer on it, this is also going to work for that, and you're going to have a minimal damage downside from either of these, even if you have that minus 15% on top. Besides this, Crabble Rancher for the extra range range and critical chance. We do like critical chance with this anyway, so rifles, pistols, and again shotguns benefit from it. Also the trophy hunter, once again more critical chance, especially against strong enemies, so you're going to literally blast elites and bosses like they're nothing and will melt their armor like they're nothing. I also went with the penetrating shots. Once again, it affects shotguns as well, so you do need the point blank artist from before anyway for it. And this is going to give you even more armor penetration, like plus 100%, which is going to be really crazy. One very interesting perk we can select from early on, which is actually much stronger than you think, is the trick shot. So this is going to make weak spots to ricochet damage to a second nearby target. Essentially, if you aim for a headshot, that headshot will ricochet to another target nearby. And what I noticed is that it actually seems to transfer the full damage or close to the full damage that you've done on the primary target. So if you one-shot the first target, the other one will be one-shotted just as well. And there are many occasions when enemies tend to be grouped up, and if you take somebody down, the other one will become suspicious initially. So this way you can actually take two birds with one stone and avoid many of the suspicious NPCs searching for you. I also picked Light Step, by the way. This is so freaking good. It lets you walk over traps and mines without ever setting them off, even run over them, by the way, so you don't have to just crouch. You can simply sprint over them and they will never detonate. So this has been such a godsend, simply because there are some points in the main story that become so annoying with the amount of traps, and this is just going to completely nullify them completely. Now, in terms of the weapons, I'm going to show you some early and late game variants. Early on, you can simply make deal with a light pistol, slap a silencer, an advanced mag on it, which is going to let you penetrate some of the armor, and also a hollow sight, which is going to drastically increase your weak spot damage. And by this point, you can pretty much 1-2 shot targets if you aim for the weak spots. So that would be headshots, and maybe even use a bit of slow time to get them in even easier. If you want something even longer range, you can just retrieve a silenced rifle from this side of the map. So if you go onto the other side of the bridge, there's going to be a small sort of building here you can go inside of, and you're going to notice it's already spawned on the second shelf you can retrieve. Just apply whichever longer sight you want so that you can use it from further away. But there's also a silenced machine pistol you can find right away on a box inside of this camp a little bit further south from the bridge we just talked about. So if you go behind this trailer, you're going to find it right here on this box set. However, by far your best possible option will be this silenced legendary shotgun called the Last Whisper. Not only does this have an insane amount of damage via the 40x8 pallet spread, but it also gets a massive extra unaware damage bonus via Dust in the Wind. So enemies that are unaware of you by default get a plus 100% damage, all the way to 150 if it scales with your sneak skill. Plus, you're going to literally dissolve them as a result of the damage, so you don't worry about leaving any bodies behind. This is so strong, in fact, that not only does it one shot in stealth mode, but even outside of stealth, you only take like 3, maximum 4 shots with it and still melt pretty much everything. So overall, this is something that you're going to get on Praetor, and if you pay attention to this Rift Anomaly camp for the northwest of the map, this is a place where you have to also go with Asa for one of her own companion quests. But if you go here and activate that Rift, you're going to get a locker, and if you open that up, that's going to be how you can retrieve the weapon. So this is literally something that you can go right away towards on the very first visit on Praetor and basically get already overpowered. Now, we're not done just yet. We still have the armors and the mods, and early on, one of your best armors is going to be native species. This is pretty much going to be a ghillie suit, and it drastically reduces the sound radius that your weapons make. You can actually get this by finding its logbox on this side of the map. It's going to be on the same red hill that the other mission from the nearby agri center brings you in anyway. So once you defeat it, the Crabble enemy, you can retrieve it from the right side as you make your way towards the top. And it's going to require about 5 decryption keys to open, but it is going to be worth it. Now, in terms of the helmet, we do have a few options. You can either go with any of the helmets that boost up your weak spot damage, so you can even find like other ghillie masks to fit with this. That's going to be ideal if you play with a sniper rifle and exclusively aim for the headshots, as that's going to always benefited. But if you're like me and eventually switch to the shotgun, I will say that the plus critical chance and critical damage ones are much better. Like early on, you get the police officer hat from the sheriff's office over in Fairfields, but progressively you're going to find much better option. The one that I ended up with were some of these helmets that give all the way to plus 75% critical damage. And the reason I prefer these a little bit more is because my shotgun doesn't always aim for the weak spots. It spreads out a little bit, so even if that happens or if I'm outside of combat, I still get the high amount of damage. That is why I was able to one-shot many of these bosses in the later stages, because of the extra massive critical damage I was getting. As far as mods go, my favorite was the cloak driver. You can literally find this inside of the Tomb of the Matriarch. So if you follow Niles's companion quest line, it's going to bring you here, and inside of the main room, you're going to retrieve it from one of these display cases for absolutely free. And what this does basically is it lets you go completely invisible. So after successfully taking down a target with a sneak attack, you become camouflaged for a whole 8 seconds, which means you will continue to be invisible. Enemies will not be able to detect you, and you also gain all of the other bonuses like the one from the ghost and whatnot. So you literally gain or continue to gain at least a portion of the sneak bonus damage that you would get otherwise from those abilities, but not for this long. It does, however, have a 10-minute cooldown, so do keep that in mind. The other one that I've been using basically is the one that stuns enemies when I get hit in melee range. You can pretty much find a lot of these also on Praetor, so if you do manage to find one, I would invest into that just in case enemies do get close to you when you're breaking stealth. Finally, we also have to talk about the flaws, and there are about like 3 of them that synergize really well with this setup. One of them you're going to likely get the soonest is going to be treacherous. So as you continue to just stealth a lot and do a lot of stealthing around, you're going to eventually get this anyway, which is going to give you another 100% to sneak attack damage and makes enemy awareness to deplete even quicker, like 50% to that rate, which is really good. It does come at the cost of about 25% of your base health, but I still think it's going to be worth it. Another one is going to be Enradiated, which you're going to get by default after completing the Enray range in the main story, so you cannot miss this. But when you get damaged by enemies, there is a chance you can become camouflaged, so invisible basically. Its cooldown is only 30 seconds too, so you can literally have another source of going invisible and breaking line of sight, but it does come at the cost of affecting like 5% of your HP. Technically, there's also easily startled, which you can actually trigger if you get spotted by enemies a lot while attempting to do stealthing. So you can actually trigger these really quickly, and this is going to give you another way to reduce enemies' awareness of you and even reduce your footstep volume, but at the cost of having some of your damage resistance and evasion being ignored for 8 seconds after enemies investigate you. So you have to be careful about not getting damaged after that, but really it doesn't really matter because everybody gets one-shotted. Now, in terms of some of the final conclusions and maybe even some drawbacks, obviously this is going to be a bit more glass cannon-y as a build, so if you get caught up, chances are that you're going to get a ton of damage dealt onto you, which is why you may want to either be careful about that with positioning or just switch to some higher resistance gear. I still think that you don't really need that because of the high amounts of damage that you deal. You can just go into a whole group of enemies, take one down, that's going to take down another via the ricochet, disengage, this is going to pop up stealth probably at this point, so disengage, change positions, and with the very basic enemy AI, they will forget about you in like a few more seconds, point at which you can return with even more stealth damage. You have to be careful to deal damage when their HP bars are purple. So when you do that, you can either use the shotgun in close range, which is more preferable because that's going to be your highest amount of damage and the guaranteed one shot. But if you happen to stalk a large group of enemies from afar, you will want to have a silenced sniper rifle in the other hand and take them down with headshots from that range. In that case, it works just as well and you don't have to be in the enemy's line of sight. But that is something that you can't always do in specific levels, so it's kind of something you can fall back on. And that pretty much concludes today's video. If you enjoyed it at any point, let me know in the comments, and also by leaving a like on the video. And if you want to see more content like this, it will really help out if you subscribe to the channel and activate that notification bell. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time,